A multitude of significant events have unfolded across the globe, but today we are zeroing in on some substantial shifts occurring within United States immigration policy. Vast numbers of individuals within the U.S. could soon find themselves compelled to relocate, whether they choose to or not. But what is driving this? What dynamics are transforming so rapidly that entire communities face potential dissolution? We will delve into the specifics of these new regulations, examining the requirements, the potential consequences, and the broader implications for millions. Stay with us as we unpack these complex changes, and we will provide a summary of our conclusions at the end of this analysis. Before we proceed, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your engagement is incredibly vital for helping our channel grow and reach a wider audience with crucial information like this. Also, let us know where you are tuning in from by leaving a comment below. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. New immigration directives are establishing hurdles making legal residency in America more challenging than ever before. From abrupt deportations to policies specifically aimed at certain demographics, the regulatory environment is altering almost instantaneously. Families who have resided here for extensive periods, building lives and contributing to communities, might face removal tomorrow. Even individuals possessing legal safeguards are finding themselves not entirely secure. Could you, or someone you know, be impacted by these developments? Is the character of your city on the verge of a permanent transformation? It is crucial to stay informed, because the next regulatory change could affect you more directly than you anticipate. Something monumental has just shifted, and if you are an immigrant residing in the U.S., this information is essential. Picture starting your day only to discover that, effective immediately, you are required to continuously validate your legal right to be in the country. No justifications, no special allowances. Does this sound severe? Well, it is the current reality. The mandatory migrant registration rule now dictates that all non-citizens must enroll with the federal government. This involves submitting biometric data, such as fingerprints and photographs, consistently carrying documentation proving registration, and periodically reporting to designated immigration offices. And here is the crucial part. Non-compliance can lead to immediate detention. Failure to adhere to these stringent requirements places individuals at risk of being detained on the spot, without delay. The implications of this are far-reaching, creating an environment of constant vigilance and potential jeopardy for non-citizens navigating their daily lives. The pressure to maintain perfect compliance is immense, as any lapse could result in severe consequences, including the loss of liberty. This mandate underscores a significant tightening of immigration oversight, demanding a level of proof and interaction with authorities previously unseen for such a broad group. But let us be clear, this is not solely about individuals without documentation. Even those holding valid work permits or awaiting decisions on asylum applications could encounter significant obstacles. Guess what? This rule could potentially serve as the initial move towards large-scale deportations. Consider the scenario. What happens if someone unintentionally leaves their registration papers at home? With over 46 million immigrants currently living in the U.S., this single regulation possesses the power to destabilize entire communities almost overnight. The ripple effects extend beyond the individuals directly targeted, impacting families, employers, and local economies. The uncertainty generated by such policies creates a climate of fear and instability, affecting the very fabric of diverse neighborhoods across the nation. Legal residents, previously feeling secure in their status, now face a new layer of bureaucratic scrutiny and potential vulnerability. The broad application of this rule means that a vast number of people must navigate this complex system, increasing the chances of errors or oversights that could lead to dire outcomes, regardless of their long-standing ties or legal standing within the country. It raises profound questions about due process and the balance between national security and individual rights for a significant portion of the U.S. population. Please make sure to watch this video until the very end, as we will be summarizing the key takeaways and offering our concluding thoughts on these significant developments. You might assume the justice system necessitates solid evidence before an individual is arrested or deported, correct? One would typically believe that due process demands substantial proof of wrongdoing. However, guess what? Under this new regulation, a formal conviction for a crime is no longer a prerequisite for being expelled from the country. Even mere suspicion, without concrete evidence, could be enough to have you packing your bags. The enhanced deportation of alleged gang members policy is currently in full effect, and it is fundamentally altering the established procedures. Authorities now possess the power to deport anyone suspected of gang affiliation, even if that individual has never committed a crime. Some individuals are reportedly being detained in facilities like Guantanamo Bay before being transferred to countries they have not seen in years, sometimes separating them from families and communities built over decades in the U.S. Think this policy exclusively targets criminals? Think again. If you have ever found yourself in the wrong location at the inopportune moment, even a simple misunderstanding or mistaken identity could potentially cost you everything. With over 10,000 deportations already documented under similar initiatives, this intensified crackdown is not merely targeting gang members. It is profoundly affecting entire neighborhoods and communities, sowing fear and uncertainty among residents, irrespective of their actual involvement in illicit activities. The lowered threshold for deportation actions raises serious concerns about potential miscarriages of justice and the erosion of legal protections for non-citizens. The implications stretch far beyond those directly accused. The policy fosters an atmosphere where association or appearance can be grounds for life-altering consequences, potentially leading to wrongful deportations and the separation of families. The reliance on suspicion rather than proven guilt marks a significant departure from traditional legal standards, creating a precarious situation for many immigrants. The reference to detentions in Guantanamo Bay, a facility historically associated with high-security detentions outside the standard U.S. legal system, adds another layer of gravity and concern regarding the treatment and rights of those targeted by this policy. The sheer number of reported deportations underscores the scale and intensity of this enforcement effort, signaling a major shift in how immigration authorities are approaching alleged gang affiliations. This approach risks casting too wide a net, catching individuals based on flimsy evidence or profiling, thereby undermining the principles of fairness and justice within the immigration system and impacting the lives of countless individuals and their families who may have no connection to criminal enterprises. Imagine residing in the United States for years, constructing a life, adhering to all regulations, only to awaken one morning and discover you are no longer considered welcome. There is no advance warning, no plan for transition, just an impending deadline before you are compelled to leave. Does it sound like a terrible dream? Well, for 300,000 Venezuelans, that nightmare has just manifested into reality. The termination of temporary protected status, or TPS for Venezuelans, is now officially implemented. This signifies that thousands of individuals who were legally permitted to stay and work in the U.S. are abruptly losing their protected status. There are no extensions granted, no avenues for appeal available, just the stark, cold reality. Depart the country, or face the risk of deportation. But guess what makes this situation even more poignant? Many of these Venezuelans escaped a nation in complete economic and political turmoil. They did not merely choose to leave Venezuela. Circumstances forced them to flee for their safety and survival. And the U.S. government previously acknowledged this dire situation, granting them TPS as a form of essential humanitarian relief. But now, that vital protection has vanished, and deportation processes are already in motion. Here is where the situation becomes even more heartbreaking. Some of these individuals have children who were born in America and are U.S. citizens. They own homes, have established businesses, and are integral parts of their communities. They pay taxes and contribute actively to the economy. Yet, virtually overnight, they have been reclassified as undocumented immigrants, with essentially only one option presented: leave voluntarily or be forcibly removed. Consider this alarming precedent. If a government can revoke legal protections from one specific group without a clear transition or recourse, who might be next? Could this establish a dangerous pattern for other recipients of TPS from countries like Haiti or El Salvador, who also rely on this status for safety and stability? With thousands now desperately searching for alternative options, This situation transcends a mere immigration issue. It unfolds as a humanitarian crisis in real time, tearing apart families and communities built over years on the promise of safety and refuge. The sudden withdrawal of TPS throws lives into chaos, challenging the very notion of humanitarian protection and the stability offered to those fleeing desperate circumstances. Consider arriving in the U.S. after an arduous and perilous journey, knowing your family's well-being hinges on this fresh start. You have been afforded a temporary safe haven, a crucial lifeline in a world fraught with uncertainty and danger. But what if that lifeline was abruptly severed without any prior notice? That is precisely what is occurring now, courtesy of the revocation of humanitarian parole programs. This policy alteration directly impacts over 200,000 refugees and asylum seekers who had already received temporary relief in the U.S. through initiatives designed to offer them a chance at safety and stability. These programs were established to provide refuge for individuals fleeing war, political persecution, or violence in their home countries. But guess what? The government has effectively pulled the plug on these essential programs, leaving these vulnerable individuals stranded in a state of limbo, uncertain of their next move or future prospects. These individuals now confront the terrifying prospect of being forcibly returned to war zones, facing political retribution, or being sent back to places where their lives are in immediate peril. Why is this drastic change happening? The official argument posits that these humanitarian parole programs have been misused by individuals who overstayed their permitted time or entered the U.S. using fraudulent claims. While this may hold true for a subset of cases, thousands of innocent individuals who have meticulously followed the rules and contributed positively to society are now facing punishment. Think about the profound emotional toll this takes on families who believed they had finally attained peace and security, only to be informed that their future is suddenly uncertain. The revocation strips away a critical safety net, thrusting already traumatized people back into precarious situations. These individuals had often already undertaken dangerous journeys, seeking safety in a country known for its refuge. Now, they are stuck, unsure of where to turn next. Many refugees and asylum seekers caught in this policy shift have been waiting patiently for years, sometimes decades, for their opportunity to formally enter the U.S. Now, after enduring unimaginable hardships, their dreams of safety might be irrevocably out of reach. The suspension does not just affect their immediate future, it disrupts their entire lives, plans, and hopes for rebuilding in a secure environment. What if one of the most foundational rights in America, the entitlement to citizenship simply by virtue of being born on U.S. soil, was suddenly rescinded? It sounds implausible, correct? Yet under the proposed end of birthright citizenship policy, this could transform into a stark reality for millions of children born within the U.S. to parents who are not citizens. You would likely be astonished to learn that over 4 million children born to immigrant parents in the U.S. could potentially lose their birthright citizenship under this new rule. The core idea driving this initiative is that if your parents are residing in the country without legal status, your birth within the U.S. should not automatically confer citizenship upon you. And here lies the unsettling twist. Even children delivered in hospitals, with absolutely no ties to any criminal activities, could face indeterminate futures regarding their nationality. Why is such a fundamental shift being considered? Proponents contend that birthright citizenship acts as an incentive for illegal immigration and promotes birth tourism, where affluent foreigners travel to the U.S. with the specific intention of giving birth to secure citizenship for their child. But is this a justifiable penalty for innocent children who had no influence over the circumstances of their birth or their parents' legal status? Here is the critical point. Once this policy potentially comes into force, hundreds of thousands of families will be compelled to reassess every aspect of their lives: access to health care, educational opportunities, and even their own long-term prospects within the country. Could this represent the initial stride towards eroding certain rights that have been an intrinsic part of American history for more than a century? The legal confrontations surrounding this policy are only just commencing, and their resolution could fundamentally alter the way we perceive immigration and citizenship in the United States indefinitely. Could your own child's future, or that of someone you know, be jeopardized? It is a question with profound implications, potentially creating a multi-tiered system of belonging based on parental status at the time of birth, challenging the long-held principle enshrined in the 14th Amendment. The potential impact on families, societal cohesion, and the very definition of American identity is immense and warrants careful consideration. The era of entering the U.S. and awaiting an asylum hearing within the country might be drawing to a close. The Remain in Mexico policy is back in effect. This contentious policy, initially implemented during the Trump administration, mandates that asylum seekers must stay in Mexico while their claims undergo processing by U.S. authorities. This reinstatement of the Remain in Mexico policy signifies that individuals who would typically be permitted to remain in the U.S. while awaiting their asylum hearings will now be returned to Mexico. What is even more concerning, many of these individuals will be compelled to wait in perilous border towns characterized by high crime rates, scarce resources, and no assurances of personal safety. You would be shocked to discover that over 60,000 individuals are already ensnared in this Remain in Mexico system, enduring precarious conditions. Furthermore, this figure is projected to climb as the policy continues to be enforced rigorously. Imagine being informed that after escaping your homeland in fear for your life, you must now wait in a location nearly as hazardous as the one you fled. The policy has demonstrably led to escalated violence along the border, accompanied by reports of kidnappings, assaults, and the exploitation of vulnerable migrants who are left with minimal options but to stay in hostile surroundings. And here is the harsh reality. Many asylum seekers are denied fundamental legal protections while waiting in Mexico, rendering it exceedingly difficult for them to adequately present their cases for asylum in the U.S. The central question remains, will this policy genuinely deter unauthorized border crossings, or will it merely exacerbate the chaos and suffering already prevalent at the border? What lies ahead for those who have been trapped in this cycle for months, or even years? The situation is intensifying, raising significant humanitarian concerns about the well-being and rights of asylum seekers subjected to these conditions. The policy shifts the burden of waiting onto individuals often ill-equipped to handle the dangers and lack of support in these border regions, potentially violating international norms regarding the treatment of asylum seekers. What if obtaining your green card or visa approval suddenly became significantly more difficult? For thousands of immigrants, that is precisely the reality under the stricter public charge rule. This regulation is a game changer. It empowers immigration officials to reject applications for legal status based on an applicant's utilization of public benefits, such as food assistance programs, housing vouchers, or government-funded health care. While this rule has existed in some iteration for years, the Trump administration elevated it to new extremes by broadening the criteria employed to assess whether someone constitutes a public charge, defined as an individual deemed likely to depend on government aid. Now, the government is intensifying its focus on factors like income level, health status, age, and educational attainment. Immigrants who rely on public services for basic survival may confront a heightened risk of being turned down when applying for permanent residency. But consider this. It is not merely those with low incomes who are at risk. It could equally affect families dependent on healthcare programs or food stamps to meet their essential needs. This more stringent rule places numerous families in an extremely vulnerable position. Take a look at the statistics. Over 500,000 applications for legal permanent residency were denied last year under these tightened standards. You might be surprised to learn how many of these rejections involved families who have diligently worked, paid taxes, and contributed to society. And now, many face the potential consequence of deportation or being refused the opportunity to stay in the only country they have ever known. Critics contend that this policy unfairly targets low-income immigrants, essentially penalizing individuals who require assistance the most. However, supporters maintain that it will curtail dependency on public programs and motivate immigrants towards self-reliance. The question persists. Will this rule result in fewer immigrants utilizing welfare, or will it push more families into hardship? And is it truly equitable to make survival harder for people who are simply attempting to get by? There is no doubt that the immigration landscape in the United States is undergoing a dramatic transformation. From the suspension of refugee admissions and the termination of TPS for certain groups to the enhanced enforcement measures and stricter rules regarding public benefits and birthright citizenship, the policies being enacted are impacting millions of lives. The reinstatement of controversial policies like Remain in Mexico adds another layer of complexity and hardship for asylum seekers. These shifts raise more questions than they answer, leaving countless families apprehensive about their futures and uncertain about what lies ahead. The cumulative effect of these changes points towards a significantly more restrictive and challenging environment for immigrants and non-citizens within the U.S., prompting widespread debate about fairness, humanitarian principles, and the very definition of American belonging. It is crucial to stay informed as these policies continue to evolve and their real-world consequences unfold. Thank you for joining us on our channel today. If you found this analysis insightful, please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know where you are watching from. Your support is invaluable in helping us continue to bring you in-depth coverage of these critical issues.